In a house that shimmered with pride and laughter lived a girl who often felt invisible. Her siblings shone brightly, and the world expected her to do the same, but Lily's heart moved to a different rhythm, quiet, yet full of unseen strength. Welcome to Tales by EUNICE. Let's dive into today's story. The house sat quietly on a small rise, cream-colored walls glowing softly whenever the afternoon sun touched them. It was the kind of house people admired from the outside, neat and dignified, with trimmed hedges and wide windows that reflected order and success. Inside, the floor tiles shone from constant cleaning, and the air always smelled faintly of polish and books. Along one wall of the living room hung framed certificates and photographs arranged with careful pride. Academic awards, medals, graduation portraits, trophies that caught the light and threw it back in gold flashes. The house told visitors a clear story before anyone spoke. This was a family of brilliance. Lily lived in that house too. Her room was at the far end of the corridor, smaller than the others, quieter. The curtains were a gentle cream, often drawn halfway as if the light itself needed permission to enter. Her bed was neatly made, not because she was strict, but because disorder made her feel exposed. There were no certificates on her walls, no photographs of applause or celebration. Just a small desk by the window and a notebook she kept hidden beneath her pillow, its pages worn soft from being opened only in the dark. Her siblings filled the house with sound. Their voices carried confidence, certainty, ease. Ethan, the firstborn, spoke like someone already aware of his future importance, shoulders always squared, words sharp and well chosen. Clara's intelligence flowed gently but relentlessly. She corrected people without raising her voice and won arguments without seeming to fight. Noah turned numbers into play, laughing through problems others feared. At the dining table, ideas bounced quickly between them like sparks, and laughter followed right after. Their father listened from his seat at the head of the table, thoughtful and composed, a man whose silence felt heavier than most people's speeches. He asked questions that stretched the room, questions that expected thinking, reasoning, confidence. Their mother moved gracefully between kitchen and table, pride glowing in her smile as she watched her children speak so freely. Lily sat among them and felt like a shadow with a heartbeat. When questions came her way, they arrived suddenly, like a bright light turned on without warning. Her thoughts did exist, but they moved slowly, carefully, like shy animals unsure if it was safe to come out. By the time she formed her answer, the conversation had already leapt ahead. She learned to nod instead, to smile small, to keep her eyes lowered so nobody would wait for her to speak. Nobody ever called her dumb. That made the silence louder. Teachers compared her gently to her siblings, as if hoping comparison itself would awaken something in her. Relatives laughed kindly and asked whose child she truly was, their jokes wrapped in smiles that still bruised. Lily laughed too, because that was easier than explaining the ache that lived just below her ribs. Over time, a quiet belief settled into her bones. Something about her had arrived incomplete. At night, when the house slept and the noise of intelligence finally rested, Lily came alive. She pulled the notebook from beneath her pillow and wrote by the glow of a small lamp. She wrote about people who felt invisible in loud rooms, about strength that lived in gentleness, about hearts that noticed what others missed. Her words moved carefully across the page, thoughtful and vivid, weaving worlds that felt more real to her than the one she walked through during the day. She never imagined it mattered. It was just where she placed the parts of herself that didn't fit anywhere else. One evening, her father announced news that filled the room with celebration. Her siblings had been shortlisted for opportunities that promised bright futures and impressive titles. Applause rose, pride shimmered, laughter bloomed. Lily clapped along, her hands moving automatically, her smile trained into place. Inside her chest, something caved inward quietly, like a room collapsing without noise. That night, she lay curled on her bed and cried into her pillow. Not dramatically, not loudly, but with the tired sadness of someone who had already asked the same question too many times. Why am I like this? Why am I not like them? Why do I feel like an extra piece in a perfect picture? Days passed, then weeks. One afternoon, Clara searched Lily's room for a charger and found the notebook by accident. She opened it without much thought, then froze after the first page. She read standing, then sitting, then slowly, carefully, as if the words might break if handled roughly. By the time she finished, the room felt fuller, heavier with something unspoken. That evening, their father held the notebook in his hands and read in complete silence. His face, usually so controlled, softened in ways Lily had never seen before. The next morning, he knocked on her door and waited. He sat beside her on the bed, the notebook resting between them, and asked quietly why she had never shown anyone this part of herself. Lily looked down and said the truth she had carried for years, that she didn't think it counted. The room went still. Her father closed the notebook gently, as though it were something fragile and alive, and told her that the ability to see, to feel, to translate emotion into meaning was not a weakness, but a rare form of intelligence. He said some minds calculate quickly, but others understand deeply, and the world collapses without people who can do both. Lily's tears came freely then, not from pain, but from the shock of being seen. Nothing changed overnight. She did not suddenly top her class or speak louder at the table. What changed was quieter and more powerful. She stopped measuring herself with a ruler that was never made for her. She stopped apologizing for the way her mind moved. The house learned too, slowly, carefully, that silence is not emptiness, and softness is not lack. And somewhere in that once quiet room at the end of the corridor, a girl who had always felt like the odd one out finally understood that she was not behind, she was simply different, and different was never the same as less. If you'd love to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button.